Alright, hey guys, so in this video, let's take a look at Barrick's Q4 and 2020 financial numbers. So yeah, as you may know, they just reported earnings recently, so we're just going to go over some of the important numbers for 2020. Okay, so let's start with their reserves update. So you can see that in 2020, they replaced 76% of the gold depletion. Right, so now their gold reserve is sitting around 68 million ounces of gold reserves, right? And then if we look at the chart on the right, you can see that's the copper reserve table. So they do have significant amounts of copper production as well. So you can see that their total copper reserve is sitting at around 13 billion pound of copper. So now if we look at their reserves breakdown by jurisdiction, so you can see that North America accounted for 42% of their total gold reserves, and then 4% of their total copper reserves. And then the Latin America and Asia Pacific accounted for 34% of their gold reserves and 40% of their copper reserves. And then we have Africa and Middle East accounted for 24% and 54%. By looking at the breakdown, you can see that Barrick do have pretty diversified portfolio of gold mines around the world. So you can see they do have significant amounts of mines in Africa, and also like over 50% of their copper reserve are in Africa and Middle East as well. Okay, now let's take a look at their 2020 financials. So you can see that their total production number for 2020 is 4.7 million ounces of gold, and then with all-in sustaining cost of $967 per ounce. So I think that's pretty good in terms of their cost base. And then if we look at the copper side, you can see their copper production is around 457 million pound of copper. And then their all-in sustaining cost for copper is around $2.23. Now, if we look at the revenue numbers, you can see their revenue for 2020 is around 12.6 billion, and with cash flow from operation of 5.4 billion, and that translates to free cash flow of 3.3 billion. Now, if we look at some of their balance sheet numbers, you can see their cash on hand is around 5.2 billion. And then they have net debts of 33 million. So they do have debts around 5 billion as well. But their cash portion can cover their debt, and basically their net debt is around 33 million. So which is like nothing for a company of their size. So by looking at the cash and debt portion, you can see that Barrick has a pretty strong balance sheet. And then if we look at their dividend payments, you can see that they have a dividend payment of 33 cents per year, or 9 cents per quarter. And then if we look at their dividend yields, their current dividend yield is around 1.75%. All right, now let's take a look at their price to cash flow ratio and their price to sales ratio. So you can see that their price to cash flow ratio is only 6.8 times. So this number is pretty low. And then if we look at their price to sales ratio is 2.9 times. So that's pretty low too. So what these two ratio is telling us is that their share price is trading pretty cheap right now. So let's just take a quick look on their share price. All right, so you can see that so this is the 1 year chart for Barrick. So the reason why Barrick's stock is cheap right now because their stock price has dropped a lot recently, right? And then I'm pretty sure that Barrick is underperforming other producers. So let's compare it with Newmont because Barrick is the second biggest gold producer behind Newmont. All right, so let's change this color. All right, so you can see the blue line. So the blue line is Barrick's share price, right? So you can see that Barrick's share is underperformed compared to like Newmont. And this is the reason why they have Barrick has a very low price to cash flow ratio and price to sale ratio. So yeah, so I think right now Barrick's stock price is pretty cheap. All right, so now let's take a look at their guidance for the next 5 years. So you can see Barrick provided their gold production for the next 10 years, and you can see that is averaging around 4.5 million to 5 million ounces of gold per year. And then if we look at their copper guidance for the next 5 years is around 450 million pound of copper to 500 million pound of copper production for the next 5 years. So by looking at their production profile, they're pretty stable. So there's not a lot of production growth. And then another thing I wanted to point out is that they still have a mine that in PNG. So they have a pretty big mine in PNG. And right now they are in negotiation with the PNG government in terms of new operating agreement regarding the mine. Right now, this mine's production guidance is not included in the guidance. All right. And then the last part I wanted to talk about is Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. So they sold 100% of Barrick's share in Q4 of 2020.